Houston, as a diverse and rapidly expanding city, confronts a range of challenges and possibilities. The mayoral election serves as an opportunity for candidates to articulate their vision in addressing these issues and elevating the overall quality of life for residents. This underscores the immense importance of the mayoral election campaign for Houston. The mayor plays a pivotal role in steering the city's policies and initiatives, directing, influencing critical areas such as public safety, education, infrastructure, and economic development. The election's outcome holds the potential to shape the city's reputation and appeal to businesses and investors. Proficient and impactful mayor can stimulate economic growth, generate employment opportunities, and bolster the city's competitiveness on both a national and global scale. The mayoral election is not merely a local event. It stands as a momentous occasion that charts the future course of Houston. Its repercussions extend beyond public service, influencing economic development and the overall well-being of the community. I sat down for conversation with Gilbert Garcia, a Democratic mayoral candidate for the city of Houston, and discussed, if elected, how he would serve and represent the city of Houston across diverse forums and interactions. With his vision and capacity, how would he enhance civic pride and foster community engagement? And in our studio today, we got Gilbert Garcia. He's running for the city of Houston as a mayor. Let's talk to him and ask him a few questions, which we all have in our mind regarding this our own city, H-Town. Thank you, Gilbert, for joining me today.
Sophia, thank you for having me. It's already a blast.
Okay. Why do you want to run for city of Houston mayor? I know this is the question you must be getting from everybody, the first question, why you want to run. But still, I'm going to ask the same question.
Sure. But when I grew up in Corpus Christi, Texas, Houston was the big city. Yeah. We would come to Astroworld. This was our vacation.
From that bridge over there.
Yes. And we would take a little tram over.
Yeah.
And so I've been close to Houston my whole life. This was the big city. And I moved to Texas back from college and working on Wall Street in 1990. So I've been in Houston now for over 30 years. And my wife and I have raised 4 children. We've invested in this. This is our home. And I've lived the Houston dream, the Houston miracle. When I joined my firm 20 years ago, we're a money manager. We were managing $200 million in assets.
Yeah.
Now we're managing $21 billion.
Yeah, that's what I was questioning. Like, you're a grad from Yale. You were at the right places.
Yes.
Why just decided to run for public office is something which you feel like, I would pass. I'm comfortable in my life.
Well, here's that thought. Let's go to that. Because number one, I love the city. And basically, I think it's going in the wrong direction. Oh. And we'll go into that. Second, I'm in a good time in my life. In other words, I'm 60 years old, which gives me a little bit of wisdom, but still gives me enough energy, the energy required to be mayor in these times. I've had 4 children, and I've been involved with all of my kids. I have coached 40 seasons of youth soccer. I've been the announcer at all the track meets. I've dressed up as Bolt the Colt, been the mascot. I've done everything. But I only have one child left at home, my princess. She's a junior in high school, so I have a lot of time. And so
you're dealing with empty nester syndrome or something?
Well, I think that's right.
Houston mayor candidate.
That's going to fill my time but I love this city. And here's the thing that really got me. So I'm in a good place in my time, in my life. And like everyone else, I see the issues going on in the city.
Yeah.
We've been fighting with our firefighters for 7 years.
I agree.
Unacceptable.
Yeah.
Unacceptable. Second, crime is near all-time highs. And who knows how much is being reported or not, because I believe a lot of low-level crime is not even being reported anymore.
Yeah, because the cops don't even reach there.
That's right. It takes hours. I think people would rather say, you know what, it's just a cost of living here. They took my purse and I'm going to move on. Even places like the Galleria. My daughter's, one of her good friends had her car stolen in the Galleria.
In the mall?
Yes, in the mall.
Wow.
And it was on camera. Nothing they can do about it.
Okay, that was my first question.
Nothing they can do about it.
Let's say like you are the mayor right now. So how are you going to deal with the crime situation?
Sure.
What would be your solution?
Sure. First of all, with all due respect to, and I'll come back to more about why I'm running, but to all due respect to some of my opponents who say I'm going to hire 500 cops. I'm going to hire 1,000 cops.
That would increase the tax?
Well, you don't have the money to hire 500 cops or 1,000 cops. Yeah. And keep in mind the time delay of hiring the cops, putting them through the academy, and then, of course, what happens when they get out of the academy, they get poached by some of the neighboring suburbs. It's too long. We need some solutions right now. So one of the things I would do is first, there was a study done by an organization that looked at the city of Houston for improvements. And they highlighted back in 2017, and I confirmed it myself when I had a meeting with Chief Finner, that we have a lot of police officers that are doing civilian paperwork.
Okay.
Why not focus on hiring more civilians? You can get them faster. You don't have to go through the academy. You bring more civilians, and then you free up those police officers to do police work. They're already trained.
Yeah, because they're trained for combat situations.
Exactly.
And why are they doing the paperwork?
Right. So that's number one.
Okay.
Number two, under Mayor Lee Brown, he really started this whole effort of what's called community policing. Think of it as storefront policing.
Okay.
And here's another way to think of it. If you look at the city of Houston is a big area.
Okay.
The firefighters already know the fastest way to get to a fire is to have fire stations spread out throughout the city.
Okay.
Well, why not have police stations or substations spread out throughout the city? Meaning get a storefront, put in 8 or 10 officers. So number one, they're there.
Okay.
That's a deterrent. Okay. Number two, they're quicker on response time to get to crime. And number three, you can improve the relationship between the community and our law enforcement, which has been strained.
But that won't increase, again, I'm coming towards the finance, that won't increase the budgets of...
Not really, because here's why. A lot of the police officers we already have, it's about redeploying them, number one. And number two, I believe, and I'm a business person, we can go to shopping center owners that have empty, vacant space, and they would welcome some security and welcome a police substation, because it makes their properties safer. I believe we can get that space for free, and that's what I would work to do. So that's number two. So number one, get police officers doing policing. Number two, go back to community policing.
Okay.
And number three, believe it or not, it sounds silly, but there's a high correlation, which means they go together, between areas that are dark and high crime. Oh. So why not focus on improving the lighting in those areas where the lighting is poor?
Because there are a lot of accidents happening.
That's exactly, when it's dark, you don't even have the sense of security of a cell phone. Someone's going to record it because it's just too dark. So those are some of the things I think we can do right now. Right. But going back for 1 second to your original question, if you don't mind, like everyone else, it's public safety, roads. We've been talking about roads, it seems like, for 2 decades, and all the road repairs that we need, et cetera, et cetera. Now we got to worry about our boiling our water. Yeah. All these issues. But what really got me was when the housing director said that there's a culture of corruption at City Hall.
Yes.
And he was fired. And then, of course, the DA investigated. And then, of course, just recently we saw in the news where a $60 million grant from the federal government for affordable housing, we had to turn it away. Yeah. There's either corruption or incompetence or both.
So why do you think they have not been addressed by the mayor right now?
Well, because I think number one, I think he's now on autopilot. He's ready to move on.
Okay.
And I think when you're a career politician, and I don't mean that in a negative way as much as it's a fact, when you're a career politician, you're used to working with people that you've worked with and favors and who knows whom and all these things rather than the bottom line. When you're in business, I've got to really manage my business well because I cannot always raise prices to my customers because I'll lose my customers. Yeah. But when you're a career politician, like the ones
then you are more in a comfort zone than to put some competition, because when you're a businessman, you have to cut it, and you have to cut your losses and do the deal.
You got it. Yeah. But let's take it a step forward, because if you're a career politician, your whole view is, well, if something goes wrong, I'll just raise fees on people. Or I'll just raise taxes. Or my in-law wants a job, I'll just put him someplace because it's the city and I can bury them. When you run a business, you have budgets, you stick to the budgets, and you don't hire people that aren't going to produce because you've got to watch the bottom line for your partners or for the shareholders. Yeah. So that's why we don't need any more career politicians. We need some business people coming into the city, because the number one issue is really incompetence. So let me continue if you don't mind. Yeah. Because I just went only through housing. The health department was raided by the FBI.
That was my next question. We should talk about what exactly happened in the fire department.
Sure. And then I'll complete the last sentence. And I do want to talk about HISD if I could.
Yes.
So on the fire department, here's the key. The voters spoke, and they want to implement pay parity for the firefighters.
Okay.
Rightly or wrongly. And I could go into the background of the pensions if need be, or time permitted, because I'm happy to. But at the end of the day, the voters spoke. It is the mayor's job to implement the will of the voters. It is not the mayor's job to challenge the voters, to say he knows better than them. And so my view is we've been wasting money on both sides of that legal issue.
Lawsuits from this side.
Because really we're paying both, because we pay the firefighters and they're paying their litigation. We're paying our litigation. At the end of the day, we should have had arbitration years ago, because let's solve it. Morale is low, near all-time lows. One of my partner's husband is a firefighter. He's been there like 15 years. He says, Gilbert, we feel like we're unappreciated. How come we don't have support? Wow. So at the end of the day, that needs to be done immediately. I have a whole pledge to Houston of what I would do my first 100 days at GarciaForHouston.com. And I talk about we need to go into arbitration immediately. The other thing I was going to say is the health department was raided.
Yes.
And that was raided by the FBI.
Yes.
Why?
It's a federal case going on there.
Now, why? Because that's where the COVID money came through. Remember the old follow the money? Yes. So when you look at it all, and I have one more, the recent airport procurement contract for all the concessions, it's a massive contract. And they did the procurement 4 times. Now, I was chairman of Metro. You don't do a procurement 4 times.
No.
And they got the same outcome the first 3 times. And then they had a different outcome the 4th time.
There is such a black hole within the system in the city of Houston.
It's terrible. It's a complete, it's either pay to play corrupt, and there's clearly some corruption we know, or it's just incompetence. But at the end of the day, the mayor's job is to bring transparency, and the mayor's job is to make sure that the people know that their money's being used wisely. And I would audit a lot of those departments that have already been raided by the authorities.
So when was the last time you think the audits were done in all those departments?
I don't think audits have ever been done on them. And certainly not an audit that's real, meaning...
So all the money which came through federal grants and FEMA and all that, Harvey, there is an issue.
There are requirements by the federal government on certain things, but I mean to really get deep, to look at money in, money out, and who got the money.
Who got the money?
Here's another thing. When I became Metro chairman in 2010, that was also an agency. And by the way, Metro's about 1/3 the size of the city of Houston, the budget.
Yeah.
So it's not small. Yeah. And by the way, our firm managing $21 billion is about 3.5 times the city's budget. So I'm comfortable with big numbers. But going back, if you look at Metro, it was another entity that had very poor transparency. One of the first things we did, we settled all the lawsuits. We put every meeting, every committee meeting, all the materials online on the internet in 2010. And we put the check registry online in 2010. If you want to see, because we pay sales tax, that's the main generator of revenue for Metro. If you want to see where any of your sales tax dollars go, just go on there and Google it. I have been talking I have a radio show, on my radio show for several years that the city of Houston needs to do that. They just did it this summer.
Wow.
After all this time. Why? Well, because the mayor's leaving office.
Yeah, because it's more of a lip servicing, because all that time it was wasted and so many resources.
And we could have seen what's really going on and who's getting the money, because that's the key. You got to eliminate all these folks that are receiving money for pay-to-play purposes or influence peddling, lobbyists and so forth. Because if there are entities that either have no expertise or have no capital at risk, they really should not be making any money from a deal, right? In other words, if you're going to be part of a team, a deal, you should either have expertise in the area or you should have capital at risk. If all you're doing is selling influence because you're the mayor's friend, you should not be getting money for that. And
that's a big accusation.
Well,
wow.
Let's fact check. At the end of the day, it's all about teams. Who's friends with whom? It is. And all you got to do is look at all the people that are lined up. It's for every big contract. And at the end of the day, as I mentioned, it's either a culture of corruption, like the housing director said, I didn't say, or it's just plain incompetence. And there's plenty of evidence to suggest incompetence is pretty strong.
So you think the city of Houston can do so much better? There's so much more potential, but nothing has been done. It's just basically passing the buck.
Because if there's money going to people who are not contributing to the success of the project, that's money that's not going to the citizens.
Yeah.
That's money.
I agree with that.
That's money that's not going for cops.
It's just going from everybody's paycheck. It's going from every resident's paycheck. It's going from every cop, every firefighter. But let me take a short break, and we're going to come right back to the HISD.
Yes.
So let me just go on a very short break. We're in conversation with Gilbert Garcia. Stay tuned.
The Made to Move sales event at Big Star Cadillac is all about the savings. Enjoy 1.9% APR financing on all 2023 and 2024 Cadillac CT4 and CT5 sedans, and all 2023 and 2024 XT4, XT5, and XT6 crossovers. Lower your payment with 1.9% APR limited term financing at Houston's Cadillac to your door dealer, Gulf Freeway, just 2 minutes south of the Beltway.
Shop smarter when you shop at Big Star. Shop BigStarCadillac.com.
Hey. Okay.
If you love me enough to tolerate my perfect little pets and all their glorious dander, then of course you'll visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure I'm in the right car seat. Hey Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look.
Welcome back. We are in conversation with Gilbert Garcia over here. He's running for City of Houston's mayor. Gilbert, before going on the break, we were talking about what exactly is going on in HISD.
Sure. A couple of things. So at least you got a better feeling for why I'm running. And Houston, hopefully you heard, there's so much we should demand better. But there are other things that the mayor could do differently and better. If you look, the mayor, his style is different than mine. When you are a CEO of a business, you never leave the table. You've got to work with people. He will not meet with the firefighter union. He will not meet with the food not bombs people that want to give give food to the homeless. He will not meet with a lot of these people. You cannot have that approach. You got to work with everybody all the time.
But he's pretty loved. People like him. People want to be with him. They want to hang out with him. I mean, what I see is like on public level, he's pretty much liked. Why then there are so many loopholes and nothing has been done to address them?
Well, that's where the media comes in. I don't think the media is really letting people be aware of what's going on in the city. All the people see is, why is my water bill high?
Yeah.
And the water bills they've tripled.
Yeah.
And people are like scratching, why is it, why? Well, we need to wake up, Houston, because if we don't wake up now, you're going to continue to see the city continue to shrink. For the first time in the history of the city of Houston, the population is shrinking. It's never gotten smaller
because
before,
people are
ever.
scared of crime. There's so much crime over there. They don't feel safe over there. They would not buy and live there or homes over there or anything.
And then they want to go to a place where they can feel better with schools. So let's go to schools. Let's go to schools.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting, and I'm a Democrat, and I will say, and I see a lot of my colleagues, Democratic colleagues, and they had press conferences, oh, how terrible, Republicans took over HISD. I'm like, wait a minute. They've been threatening to take over HISD for a decade because we needed to improve the schools. And all this time, we've really done nothing but watch. And so it's kind of like, well, who suffered? The kids.
The kids, future generation.
And who are they? They're mainly kids of color.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that need the help and support and the mentoring the most.
You bet. Mm-hmm.
And if we're not giving them the right background education, who's going to be the future workforce for companies that want to move to Houston in the future? That's the workforce. And so now that the state has intervened, my view is enough already. The state has intervened.
Yeah, they did.
We need to embrace the state, embrace the new superintendent, and say, all right, Mr. Superintendent, let me give you some input. Let's at least have a voice of what we think makes sense. But let's hear from the superintendent. How does he define success? Is it test scores? Is it enrollment goes bigger? Is it what percent go to college? I mean, I don't know, but let's find out now. And whatever defines success, let's help him get there right away.
Okay.
Why? Because then the kids win, and we can get local control back. So rather than have this attitude of, well, I don't want to meet with him, are you kidding? We need to meet with him now. And we need to figure out how can we solve this together for the benefit of the kids. And so there needs to be a whole different attitude. Here's another one. There's going to be a proposition on the ballot called Proposition A. There's two key ones for the local. One is A. And it's really, I don't want to say shameful, but it's very, well, the shameful, we got to do this. Right now, the mayor has absolute power. And if he doesn't want something to be talked about, he doesn't put it on the agenda. I had that same power at Metro, absolute power. If I didn't want something to happen, I wouldn't put it on the agenda. If it's not on the agenda, it can't even be discussed. If it's not discussed, you can't even take action. Here's the thing. Anytime any of my board members wanted something on the agenda, I put it on. Why? Because I want the voters to see and the citizens what we're talking about.
Okay, so let's let me ask you this over here. Like, there's such a big city council. What are they doing then? If he doesn't put it on the agenda, why don't they push it?
Well, that's the whole point. They can't. But hold that thought. In other words, all they are kind of like rubber stamps, rubber stamping whatever he brings forward to them. They can ask some questions, but the bottom line is, unless it's on the agenda, no action can be taken. Well, a lot of council members are frustrated. And so now Proposition A says that if 3 members of the city council want something on the agenda, it goes on the agenda.
Oh, okay.
That's a good thing, Houston. Now, I wish the number were a little bit higher because 3 sounds pretty small. But at the end of the day, if it takes that to take away this imperial attitude, it's a good thing. I didn't have that attitude. I wanted the citizens to know I'd rather have discussion in open air than in the cloakroom. So that's a very important thing. So this mayor has a different style than what I think we need today.
Let me ask you this question as well, because I know this is something related to that. But if you look at the Texas state, Governor Abbott has taken a lot of rights and a lot of administrative powers from the city as well. How would you control that? Because there's not much powers in the control of the mayor or the city council right now.
Well, you cannot control it. I think the key is how can you influence it?
Yeah.
Well, I think you got to look at it from their point of view, which is, because remember, there's always 2 points of view. Is, here they were warning about HISD and nothing happened. Here they were warning about we were going to get Harvey money and we weren't getting our paperwork in time, and so money had to go somewhere else. HUD money had to go somewhere else. You can already see where they're like, you guys can't get your act together.
So there are no conversations between the state and the city?
The answer to that is I don't know. I'm sure there are. But I know one thing. If I were to win mayor, I'd get on a plane immediately to see Governor Abbott and the Commissioner Buckingham, the GLO, because those are our bankers.
Yeah.
You cannot fight your bankers. You need them. You need their support.
So using the partisan politics is playing over there
I do think so.
Having people's best interests in mind?
I think there's a lot of that. I think there's ego. I think there's personalities. And when someone controls the purse, the other side needs to recognize that, and the other side needs to be the one to really make the overtures to work it out and have a successful relationship. That's what a business person does. Yeah. You got to really minimize your ego because you're out there for the shareholders. And in our case as mayor, you're out there for the citizens. And if your ego's
for the people,
if your ego's too big and you're not getting support, well, it's just hurting the people. You may think, well, I'm not going to go do that. That's the bad attitude.
Okay. My next question would be, we were talking about before the recording, HUD and the federal grants we got. Let's talk about the housing. Why housing is not increasing in the city of Houston? What's the issue over there?
Well, number one, first, I'm experimenting, my family and I, on building moderate income housing.
Yeah.
I'm not a developer, but I'm experimenting. One of the things I discovered is moderate income housing does not sound like moderate income housing. Moderate income housing is like $300,000. And I'm like, who can afford that?
Who can afford that?
Who can afford that?
Yeah.
And today's interest rates in particular.
Yeah.
And so, but that's what they consider moderate income housing.
And land is not an issue, knowing state
That's right.
prices.
So that's number one. Number two, are you ready for this? So here we are wanting to build moderate income housing. And it took us a year to get the permits. 1 year. What? And here's why that's so bad. It's in the city's interest to get that housing complete.
Yeah.
Because we need it desperately.
Yeah.
Why do we need it? So people can move back into the city. We can stabilize the neighborhoods. When you have more citizens, they look out for each other.
Yeah.
It deters crime, all of those things. Takes care of the neighborhood. Number two, you want those houses on the tax rolls
Yes.
because we get property taxes.
Yeah, we
from
get
them.
property taxes.
And so it's outrageous. There needs to be a whole mindset change at City Hall. And that's why I think a business person would say the permitting department is a money generator. It's not just some department. It's a money generator. And if there's a backlog there, it's preventing me as mayor from getting more revenue for the citizens. So you got to have a whole different mindset. And that's where I think a business person comes in. We got to revamp that entire permitting process, because everywhere I go, when I speak to business professionals, they are so frustrated with the permitting process, they don't even want to go through the process.
It looks like there's a lot of red tape in the department, because this has been, a lot of people have been talking about it. There are a lot of, you can say, like at a grassroots level, a lot of people are really unhappy about it. A lot of residents are unhappy because, let's face it, crime is an issue. Housing is expensive. School is not doing good in ISD. So
we got to boil our water. The roads are bad, and then keep going.
So
firefighters are unhappy. We're fighting with them all the time.
And then when you call the cops, they don't even show up.
The cops don't show up. Now you've got questionable procurement processes.
Yeah.
You got a housing department under a cloud of investigation. You got a health department under a cloud of investigation. You've got
Okay, so are we really ready if something else like a previous pandemic happened? So are we really prepared, City of Houston?
The answer to that is, you got to always have hope, and you got to always feel that when there's a crisis, we'll come together.
Yeah, we will.
A crisis will bring us together. But let's not wait for a crisis
to happen.
Let's get together now
and do something.
That's
about
right,
it.
because why wait for that pandemic for everyone to rally when we should be rallying to say, how do we get that school fixed? How do we implement the will of the voters? How do we solve crime? How do we get companies moving back to Texas? How can we clean up this housing department, this health department that are, how can we do all these things together and get ready for the next stage of Houston's growth and turn around the tide? Because Houston's not growing, and we got to get it growing again.
Because my last question would be because there are a lot of companies which are not moving in City of Houston, but they are moving in other cities of Houston. It could be Sugarland. Sugarland is developing. Katy is doing pretty good. Woodlands has done phenomenally good. So why that? Is it because of the same black hole we have been talking about of corruption?
I think it's part of a culture of doing business, which leads to poor services. And all the things we've talked about, roads, crime, HISD, I think that whole image says, don't move here. Because if you move here, your workers will be unhappy and your property values will be declining somewhere in the future.
And we haven't discussed the cancer cluster issue.
That's right.
Because there's another one over there.
So ultimately, let's go back to your point, but let's go one step higher. There are companies leaving high tax states.
Yes.
Like California, New York.
Yes.
And they're moving to Texas, which is a low tax state.
Perfect. Yeah.
But they're moving to Dallas.
Yeah.
They're moving to Austin.
Yeah.
They're not moving here.
But Austin is expensive as well. So they're still moving there?
They're still moving to Austin because Austin has this flair of being young and trendy and,
But that cannot be a fault of any city.
But, I don't know. What have we done to foster a South by Southwest? What have we done to foster movie studios? What have we done to foster a theme park? We haven't had a theme park since Astor, whatever it was, 30 years ago, and we're one of the biggest cities in America.
Yes.
What have we done?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
The Disney contract went to Dallas, actually. Yeah.
You got it.
Yes.
And Austin has been at the forefront of building this incredible South by Southwest, which gets people from all over the world that come here for movies, music. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
We've got to do something more than just be the oil and gas capital of the nation. We've got to take advantage of our proximity. What does that mean? If you look at the United States, there's East Coast, West Coast. We're right in the middle, perfect between both coasts. And we are in a better temperature zone because Chicago's too cold and it's big winter.
Yeah.
And you have direct flights from Houston all over the world. And we are the gateway to Central and South America.
Yeah.
We should be the gateway for all those companies that want to come into America rather than Miami. Miami's become like the gateway to Latin America.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
We need to really take advantage of where we are and go beyond and think differently than just we want to be the oil capital. The other thing is, if you look at Houston, we should want to be in the same breath as the great cities of the world. New York, London, Paris, Barcelona, Madrid, Tokyo, rather than just we want to compete with San Antonio and Austin.
Yeah,
we should want to be a great city of the world.
Yeah,
and we can do it if we think bigger and differently and get rid of all this insider stuff.
Insider. Thank you so much, Gilbert, for joining me today in my show. It's a pleasure talking to you and wish you good luck with your campaign.
Well, I had a blast. Thank you, Houston. And no matter what, Houston, whoever you support, please vote, vote, vote. You have to vote. That's how you're going to make your voice known, and that's how you're going to have change in this community that's going to benefit your neighborhoods.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
With this conversation with Gilbert, you must have realized how important it is for all Houstonians who lives within the limits of City of Houston to go out and vote. Never, ever underestimate the power of your vote, even if it is just one. Don't think that if you do not vote, it's not going to make a difference. Every vote counts, and it makes hell of a difference in the life of all the residents who live within the city. Have a great weekend. Thank you for watching with me, Truth Be Told, with Sophia Jamal.